Hey everybody, it's Scribe here. Thank you for viewing this podcast. It's going to be a little bit different one than we normally do. It's going to be a little bit more subdued. It's a very serious matter, and it's one that I've been wanting to talk about on this podcast for a while, but it's kind of like, when's the right time to do it? But I think with the general elections coming up and the need for us to really explain ourselves to the legislators about what it is that ABATE of Florida fights for and why we do what we do. It's this podcast that I want to talk to you about. Several years ago, I wrote letters to the editor for newspapers, major and small, all across the state of Florida. And I wrote to them asking the readers if they knew of anybody or they themselves have lost a loved one to a motorcycle accident where the driver of the vehicle that injured or killed the motorcyclist was given basically a slap on the wrist and let go. Well, I was surprised to get several results back, and I'd like to take this time to share with you a few of what they are. Each one of the stories is a heartbreaking, sad, tragic story, and it's going to be told from the family side of the story. A story that is so private and so personally devastating that it is too painful for most families to share. It is too painful for most families to want to go public with. So I really respect those families that decided to be courageous enough to share their sad stories with us so that we could see what it is. And I do know when I read these letters, and then later when I personally called each one and talked to each family, I do know that I was having them relive this horrible nightmare. So I thank them, and they truly are very courageous for being able to relive their most horrifying day of their life in order to help us explain what it is that ABATE does. They put their heartbreaking stories on paper for us to help get the legislators to understand what it is that ABATE of Florida fights for, and why ABATE of Florida, unlike any other organization out there, fights for motorcycle rights, motorcycle safety awareness, and for all motorcyclists, not just the clubs, not just the organizations, not just the associations. We fight for everybody. We fight for them. We fight for the individuals who just want to have a good time and ride and gear up and throw their leg over the saddle and take off for a nice trip. We fight for everybody. I'm hoping that these stories, by sharing them publicly, thankfully the families that responded to me were courageous enough to put their heartbreaking stories on paper so that we could try to get the legislators to see that there are consequences to the laws or the lack of laws that they pass and they help to enforce. As most of you know, ABATE of Florida has been a driving force for the last several years for either a stiffer penalties or vulnerable road users bill that would help increase the penalties that people would get when they kill or seriously injure a motorcyclist for breaking the law. Today, I'm going to share a few of these stories with you. These stories, like so many stories that we've heard and we've lived through, even up to just a few weeks ago when we lost a brother up in Lake County. It's a story that we've heard of many times, but it's one that we need to share with the general public and with the legislators. These stories will both sadden your heart and infuriate you because of the lack of justice for the individuals who were killed. I believe that it's important to revisit these stories during this election period. We need to get the attention of those legislators who are fighting to keep their office and for the candidates who are fighting to get into office. They need to know what it is exactly ABATE of Florida fights for and why we are so passionate about saving motorcyclist lives and about bringing justice to those who kill us. The legislators need to know what it is that ABATE of Florida is fighting for and who we're fighting for. Because if not us fighting, who would fight for these people? Many organizations, when they have a member go down, they'll do an event, they'll raise money for the families, and they'll help them out as much as they can. But ABATE of Florida fights for everybody and wants to make everybody safe. We don't care if you wear a patch, if you don't wear a patch, you're all family to us. You're all brothers to us. We want every one of you to be safe. We want every one of you, when you get on the bike, to make it home safely, back to your family and your friends and your loved ones. So we are fighting for you. We need to let our legislators know what it is we're fighting for. And the legislators need to hear these stories from more than just Doc and myself. They need to hear it from you. When you're talking to your local legislator, let them know about these stories. Let them know that their constituents are getting killed and justice is not being served. Let them know why you can talk to them about what ABATE of Florida does and about motorcycle rights and motorcycle safety. They need to hear these stories. I have made the decision when reading these letters to leave out a lot of the information, to keep it more personal to the families and not give out a lot of information. So forgive me for that. But you will see that the lack of detailed information does not lessen the horrific stories of each one of these people. And also forgive me for I'm going to be reading these because I want you to be able to hear the words of these people. I want you to know that reading these stories is really, really difficult. It brings a lot of heartache and is very sad. So forgive me. On May 9th, 2013, I received a phone call from my soon-to-be stepmother around 10:30. She was screaming, "He's gone. He's gone." He was my daddy. He was driving home and with some other friends, and he was hit by an SUV, and he was run completely over, and he was dragged for 3 miles. We later found out that the driver of this SUV was intoxicated and therefore was running from the police when the police tried to pull her over. Eyewitness accounts showed that there were sparks coming from below the SUV because the motorcycle and the body being tangled up underneath it. Even the front of the SUV was on fire from the sparks igniting. And still the person was trying to run from the police. So when finally they pulled her over and they were able to get my daddy's body out, he had lost an arm and a leg, but most importantly, he'd lost his life. The police took blood samples from the driver, but later on in court hearings, her blood toxicology was thrown out due to lack of education from the police department. We did hire a private investigator to help us look into the matter, and the private investigator showed that this person had 5 DUI charges from other states, but Florida wouldn't recognize it. She should never have been driving in the first place. On the day that my daddy was to soon marry my stepmom, that was the day I had to drive down from Ohio to pick up Daddy's ashes. Daddy was loved by many, and he never knew a stranger. The next letter. A man was driving recklessly in his car, and he decided to turn into a blocked business entryway. He decided to make this turn from the center lane of a multi-lane road, and he turned right in front of my son. My son, having no space to turn or time to evade, crashed headfirst into the Ford pickup and was thrown onto the pavement. He never regained consciousness. By the time that they got him to the trauma center, the physician said that it's the time has come, the time to release him. And so our son left his body. The person who made this turn, this illegal, reckless turn, in front of the motorcycle, in front of my son, tried unsuccessfully to escape the traffic violation. And he was given a $1,000 fine and a 6-month license suspension. The state attorney refused to charge the driver criminally, saying his actions did not constitute reckless or careless driving. His charge for killing my son was improper lane change. I will never have my son again. The next letter. On August 22nd, 2014, one day after returning home from a 6-month deployment in Afghanistan, and just weeks before he completed his service in the U.S. Air Force, a car pulled out in front of my brother's motorcycle. My brother was unable to avoid the crash, struck the back of the vehicle, and was ejected. Within hours, he died from his injuries at the hospital where he was born 26 years before. After a drawn-out 9-month investigation by the Tallahassee Police Department, the driver was only cited with failure to yield. The driver, who killed my brother, received a fine and a 6-month suspension for his license. We were told by the prosecutor that, hey, this was a good outcome. You should be happy. He got a small fine and he can't drive for 6 months. You should be happy. They've never had to bury a family member. My brother was a skilled driver and wore proper gear, including helmet and gloves. But nothing can protect a motorcyclist from the actions of a careless driver. Another one says, after Christmas tree shopping with my sister-in-law and his kids, my brother was killed while riding his motorcycle home. A 90-year-old man driving south made a left turn directly in front of him. There was no time for my brother to even react. He hit the passenger side of the vehicle. His spinal cord was severed upon impact, and 2 ribs were broken that pierced his heart. Our only consolation was that he died immediately and didn't hurt. The driver of the car was ticketed for failure to yield the right-of-way. There are no laws to protect innocent motorcyclists and their families in the state of Florida. I have sent an email and letters to legislators and my congressman, but still haven't heard anything back from them. The next one. Our son bought a motorcycle. 2 weeks later, he was killed. He was rear-ended by a van. He was 19 years old. He was on his way from work to college. The man did not even slow down. He carried our son an obscene distance. Although it was suspected that the man was distracted, that doesn't legally prove gross negligence, we were told. 2 months previously, the driver had received a traffic ticket for driving the same vehicle 70 miles per hour in a 45-mile zone. For killing my son, the person ended up paying just a little over $1,000 in fines and received a 6-month driver's suspension. My son was an amazing person. He had a lot to live for. The next one. My youngest son was killed in a motorcycle versus car accident. He had just turned 19 in September. The driver of the Chevy Suburban pulling an Airstream trailer was at a stop sign. The driver of the car went to make a left turn to go east, but he pulled out in front of my son, who was coming the other direction. My son was entangled under the trailer. The fire department had to use airbags to lift the trailer off of him. The emergency personnel could hear him this whole time, but it seems that once the trailer was lifted off of him, he went into shock and died. Yes, he was wearing a full face helmet. The investigating officer did state in his report that the skid marks indicated that our son had employed an expert maneuver and laid the motorcycle down in an attempt to avoid or lessen the impact. The driver of the car was charged with failure to yield the right of way and sent along his way. This was a proverbial slap on the wrist. Next one. My son was killed by a careless driver who made a slow turn in front of him, blocking my son's lane of travel. The defendant claimed that he had to turn slow into his driveway due to his truck suspension being altered. The defendant claimed he saw the motorcycle headlight approaching and thought he had enough time to make his turn into his dirt driveway. My son could not stop, could not maneuver out of the way, and read right into him, killing him instantly. The driver of the vehicle was charged with failure to yield left turn, which is a non-criminal traffic citation. My husband was killed in October by a woman who crossed the median. I myself watched this all unfold from my own bike. She was given no ticket, and the reason I was giving was that she had a blackout and that she had been having them for not just for a while, but not just while driving, so she thought it was okay to keep on driving. I was told that they didn't charge her because she didn't set out to kill anyone that day. Well, my husband didn't set out to die that day either. She received nothing. No fine, no suspension. Just, let's hope you don't black out again when you drive. The last one. Our daughter was involved in a motor vehicle collision that ended her life. She was riding her brand new motorcycle, wearing a full face helmet and all of her riding gear. A motorist going the opposite direction ran a red light and turned left, crossing 4 lanes of traffic into my daughter's path. Let's repeat this. The driver that killed this daughter ran a red light, turned left across 4 lanes of traffic, hit the young lady on the motorcycle, and killed her. The man was not suspected of anything, so anything criminal, therefore no blood tests were taken. But they did, because my daughter's on a motorcycle, they did do blood testing on her. The man who hit her was issued a ticket for running a red light. That's it. The person who hit her received a $1,000 fine and a suspended driver's license for 6 months. So we see a pattern here. We see that the state of Florida sees that a person's life is worth $1,000 and 6 months of no driving. ABATE of Florida has been working for a long time to pass a vulnerable road users bill that would protect vulnerable road users. We are not asking for jail time because we learned a long time ago that the legislators will not go for this because it has a negative impact on the Florida budget. We are asking that the judges be allowed an array of stiffer penalties so that they can make the choice. We understand accidents happen. We accept that. Riding a motorcycle is a risk. Every single one of us who straps on and throws a leg over the saddle assumes this risk. We are knowledgeable of the risk. We know accidents happen. It's when a person carelessly, willfully pulls across traffic, runs into people. They see people, they still turn in front of them. That there needs to be more options that the judge can give them. Maybe spend time in a trauma unit. Let them see the other side. Let them see the family members that are dealing with this sudden loss of somebody. Let them see the impact, the consequences of their careless, stupid decision. Make them go and give talks to people about the consequences of their action. For some of the severe cases, maybe a little house arrest. Anyway, with the upcoming session, our bill will be sponsored again, and as soon as we get a number and as soon as we get a sponsor, I'll be putting out another podcast letting you know what the title, what the number of the bill is, so you can start getting support. But right now, I need you to share these stories with the legislators. Share them with all of the biker community. Let them know that ABATE of Florida is wanting to help, is fighting for everybody. We need to get this law passed. We need there to be some justice. A little bit different podcast today. So I thank you for sticking with me. And I will let you know when you can help us. So thank you very much. Goodbye.